Good morning, Virgo. Anna here from Virgo. I'm happy to see you again. Okay, so listen to me right now because April is sitting there on your calendar and something in you knows it's different. You can feel something building, something shifting, something preparing to break open. And I'm not talking about a vacation or a weekend getaway. I'm talking about a complete life reorganization, a leaving behind of what no longer fits, and a moving toward what's actually meant for you. Some of you are literally going to pack bags and relocate. Others are packing metaphorical bags, releasing old identities, old patterns, old versions of yourself that have expired. Either way, April represents a threshold, and you're either already feeling it or you're about to. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and subscribe to stay connected. Now let's talk about what's actually preparing to shift in your life. Stop everything and focus because this is real. You've been feeling restless, like something's wrong but you can't name it, like you're wearing clothes that don't fit anymore, living in a house that's too small, operating in a life that's too tight. Everything feels constricting, like you've outgrown your current reality but haven't moved into the next one yet, and you've been trying to make it work, trying to adjust, trying to convince yourself you're fine where you are, but you're not fine. You're suffocating. And every day that passes makes it more obvious. April is when that becomes undeniable, when you can't pretend anymore, when the discomfort gets so loud you have to move. Not because I'm predicting the future, because you're building toward a breaking point. And April is when that pressure you've been feeling finally finds release. Let me tell you what this might look like for different people. For some of you, this is literal relocation. You're moving cities, moving states, maybe even moving countries, and it's not planned yet, or it's barely planned. You've been thinking about it, researching, fantasizing, but April is when it becomes real. When opportunity arrives, when circumstances align, when you finally say yes, maybe you get a job offer somewhere else. Maybe a relationship pulls you to a new location. Maybe you just wake up one day and book the ticket, sign the lease, make the decision. However it happens, you're physically leaving, packing actual bags, saying actual goodbyes. And it's terrifying and exhilarating simultaneously because you're not just changing location, you're changing everything. New city means new life, new possibilities, new version of yourself. Um, for others, the move is professional. You're leaving a job, a career, an industry, something you've been in for years that no longer serves you, and you've been scared because walking away from stable income, from known territory, from something you're good at, that's risky. That feels irresponsible. That makes no logical sense. But April is when logic stops mattering, when staying becomes more painful than leaving, when you realize you can't give one more year, one more month, one more day to something that's draining your soul. So you quit. You resign, you walk away, you pack up your desk, and you leave. And maybe you have another job lined up, maybe you don't. Maybe you're starting your own thing. Maybe you're taking a break to figure out what you actually want. Um, Either way, you're done with the old way. And April is when you act on that. For others, the change is relational. You're leaving a relationship, a marriage, a partnership, not impulsively, not without thought, but after months or years of knowing it's not working, of trying to fix it, of hoping it'll get better, of sacrificing yourself to keep it alive. And April is when you finally admit it's over, when you stop performing, when you speak truth, when you pack your bags literally or figuratively and you choose yourself. And it's devastating because even when a relationship is wrong, ending it hurts. Even when you know it's right, grief still shows up, loss still registers, but you're doing it anyway because staying is killing you. And you finally love yourself enough to leave. For others, it's not one big move, it's multiple shifts happening at once. Like April is the month where everything you've been building toward or breaking away from all comes to a head. You're changing jobs and moving cities. You're ending a relationship and starting a business. You're releasing old friendships and stepping into new communities. Everything is shifting simultaneously. And it feels chaotic, but it's actually aligned. Because sometimes life doesn't change incrementally. Sometimes it changes all at once. Sometimes you don't get to adjust gradually. You get thrown into complete transformation. And April might be that for some of you. The month where your old life ends and your new one begins. Not symbolically, actually, tangibly, undeniably. Now let me tell you what's driving this. What's creating this urgency? You've been compromising for too long on too many things. You've been accepting less than you deserve because it was easier than fighting for more. You've been staying in situations that don't fit because leaving felt too hard, too scary, too risky. You've been making yourself small to accommodate other people's comfort, and that worked for a while. You convinced yourself it was fine, that you were being realistic, practical, mature. But something's been growing underneath all that compromise. A quiet knowing, a deep dissatisfaction, a voice that keeps getting louder saying, this isn't it. This isn't your life. This isn't what you're meant for. And you've been ignoring that voice, drowning it out with busyness, with obligations, with fear. But it's getting impossible to ignore. It's becoming the loudest thing in your head. And April is when you finally listen, when you finally honor what you've been knowing, when you finally act on what you've been feeling, not because the circumstances are perfect, because you can't wait for perfect anymore, not because you have it all figured out, because you'll never have it all figured out, just because staying where you are is no longer an option, because something in you has decided. And once you decide, truly decide, the universe starts moving things. Opportunities appear. Conversations happen. Resources show up. Doors open. Not magically, just practically. Because when you're clear on what you want, you notice things you were missing before. You say yes to things you would have said no to. You take actions you were too scared to take. And those actions create results, create momentum, create change. So April becomes the month where all that internal decision making becomes external action, where the private work you've been doing shows up as public transformation. Now let me tell you what you need to do to prepare, because this isn't happening to you. This is happening through you. First, you get clear on what's actually calling you, not what's logical, not what makes sense to other people, what's calling you, what's pulling you, what won't let you sleep at night. That's the direction. That's where the bags need to be packed toward. Even if it's unclear, even if it's undefined, even if it's just a feeling, you honor it, you move toward it, You trust it. Second, you start releasing what's not coming with you. And I mean actively releasing, not just thinking about it, not just knowing you need to, actually doing it. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Set the boundary you've been too scared to set. Make the decision you've been postponing. Take the first step toward the exit, because the new life can't come in if you're still clutching the old one. You have to make space. You have to let go. You have to create emptiness for the new to fill. Third, you get your logistics together. If you're actually moving, start planning, research places, look at housing, figure out finances, make it practical. If you're changing careers, update your resume, network, apply, prepare. If you're ending a relationship, figure out living situations, get support systems in place. Whatever the change is, you handle the practical pieces, because transformation requires both vision and logistics. You need the dream and the plan, the inspiration and the execution. Fourth, you tell the people who need to know. Not everyone, just the essential people, the ones who'll be affected, the ones who can support you, the ones who deserve to hear it from you directly. And you tell them clearly, not apologetically, not asking permission, just informing, this is what's happening, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need. Direct, honest, grounded, and you let their reactions be their reactions. You don't manage their feelings about your choices. You just make your choices and let them process however they need to. Fifth, you brace for resistance, because change this big creates reaction from other people who don't understand, who think you're crazy, who try to talk you out of it, from your own fear, your own doubt, your own conditioning that says stay safe, stay small, stay known, from circumstances that seem to conspire against you, last-minute obstacles, unexpected complications. All of that is normal. All of that is part of big transitions, and you don't let it stop you. You just move through it. You handle each obstacle as it comes. You don't interpret resistance as sign you're on the wrong path. Sometimes resistance is just confirmation you're on exactly the right path and your system is scared. Scared is different than wrong. Remember that. Now let me tell you what's on the other side of this April transformation. Not to create expectation, just to give you something to anchor to when it gets hard. On the other side is space, room to breathe, room to be yourself without performing. On the other side is alignment, your external life finally matching your internal truth. On the other side is possibility, options you couldn't see from where you were before. On the other side is relief, the relief of finally doing what you knew you needed to do, of finally being honest, finally choosing yourself, finally living instead of just existing. And yes, there's also uncertainty. There's also fear. There's also grief. Because leaving anything, even things that were wrong for you, involves loss. You lose the familiar. You lose the known. You lose the version of yourself that fit that old life. And that's real. That hurts. That requires mourning. But on the other side of that mourning is birth, is newness, is becoming, is the version of you that's been waiting to emerge. That couldn't emerge in the old environment. That needed new soil new conditions, new space to grow. And April is when you give yourself that. When you pack those bags and you go, literally or metaphorically, physically or spiritually, doesn't matter. What matters is you move, you change, you transform. Um, you stop waiting for permission and you just go. Take what resonates here, leave what doesn't, and know that if April feels significant to you, there's a reason. Not because I'm predicting your future, because you're creating it, because something in you has been preparing for this, building toward this, needing this. And April is when preparation becomes action, when private becomes public, when knowing becomes doing. So get ready, not with fear, with intention. Get ready to pack those bags. Get ready to say those goodbyes. Get ready to step into different. Get ready to become who you've been growing into this whole time. April is coming, and so is your new life. Not because the calendar changed, because you did, because you finally chose yourself, chose truth, chose growth. And that choice, that's what changes everything. Trust it, honor it, act on it. Your new life is waiting. Go claim it.